We've collected 30 crazy incidents to show you what the daily life of a Tesla owner is really like. Roll 'em! Amy was approaching an intersection when the light turned yellow. Roads were wet, and she wasn't sure if she'd be able to stop, so she decided to try to make it through the yellow light. Unfortunately, that was a big mistake. A lady driving a silver Chevy Cruze failed to yield to oncoming traffic, instead following behind another car turning left. Neither Amy nor the Tesla's safety features were able to react in time, and she slammed into the front passenger side of the Chevy. The impact caused her to hit a pickup truck, making this another 3-car accident. We say another because this wasn't Amy's first 3-car accident in a Tesla. More on that in a bit. Luckily, both drivers were okay. Unfortunately, Amy's Tesla wasn't so lucky. It was deemed a total loss after receiving a repair estimate of over $35,000 US. Police decided that Amy and the Chevy driver shared equal fault for the accident. They both received a citation, Amy for running a red light and the other driver for failing to yield. According to Amy, she's cursed when it comes to owning a Tesla. Only 3 months earlier, her first Tesla was totaled in another 3-car accident. Unfortunately, she hadn't had her Teslacam set up, so we don't have any video of it, but her photos tell quite a story. She was rear-ended and pushed into a Hyundai in front of her, making a Tesla sandwich. The guy who hit her just jumped out of the car and ran away, and was never found. Thankfully, Amy wasn't injured, although she admits she was very shaken up. Mosen was sitting at a red light when he noticed police cars approaching from all directions. Little did he know, he had a front row seat to a chase being broadcast on national news.
Breaking news involving a major police presence in Coquitlam,
where 4 suspects armed with guns stole a vehicle and fled, engaging in a shootout with police, who began blocking intersections.
Mosen was sitting in one of those blocked-off intersections, and the armed robbers were heading straight for him. The criminals continued, even after crashing into 2 cars, only to be hit by a garbage truck. Even after that, their car was still drivable, and they kept running. The chase finally ended further down the road after an even bigger crash, and 2 suspects were arrested while 2 others are still at large.
The robbery led to exchanges of gunfire, a vehicle chase, carjacking, and several road closures.
Junior was on his way home from work when he came across stopped traffic. He noticed 2 police cars were blocking all lanes, so he assumed an accident had occurred. Suddenly, he heard tires screeching. When he looked at the rear camera, he saw a car approaching at full speed. At first, he thought it was just a distracted driver, but then he noticed it was a police chase. The BMW driver took to the shoulder and managed to drive around the police roadblock. Logan was sitting in traffic and wondering why 2 helicopters were in the air so close together. His girlfriend in the passenger seat tried looking online, but she couldn't find any news about it. As they drove through a traffic light, they noticed an empty cop car sitting in the street. Weird. Logan drove past the police car and waited at the next light. Eventually, a gray Mazda 3 with black rims drove through the intersection. Right after that, a cop flew through and blocked the car from continuing. A moment later, 4 police cars arrived and surrounded the Mazda. One officer ran right in front of Logan's Tesla. He crept forward, and we can see what happened in the right repeater camera. This is Logan's first Tesla, and this happened on his 2nd day of owning it. He said he's a longtime Wham Bam viewer, and he's loving the car and thinks the camera features are super cool. While driving in a 30-mile-per-hour zone, an Audi TT passed John on the left. Suddenly, a car in the right lane started turning left and collided with the Audi, lifting 2 of its wheels off the ground and causing it to spin across the road, nearly hitting another car. John stopped to make sure everyone was okay, and he gave a copy of his video to the driver of the Audi for their insurance claim. Don't worry, I thought it said Dwayne Johnson at first too. How cool would that be? Anyway, let's start over. Dwayne Jones was driving his Model Y in Orlando, Florida, when the driver in front of him overcorrected and swerved into a guardrail. The other driver then took off. I guess this doesn't count as a hit and run, but you should probably stop if you're involved in any accident. Mike was heading to a track day at the Arizona Motorsports Park one morning when he approached a red light with two vehicles in front of him. Shortly after the green turn arrow lit up, both drivers in front of him acted as though it was a green light and drove right through the intersection. What do you think happened here? Maybe someone was looking at their phone instead of the traffic lights. Vikas had to slam on his brakes when a car made a left turn in front of him. Here are two things to note. The other driver was making an illegal left turn and he wasn't yielding to other traffic. Vikas says he can't confirm this, but he has a feeling Autopilot helped him brake while nudging his car to the left. Steve sent us this video from driving his Model 3 in Wales. He called this a perfect example of why he thinks cyclists shouldn't be allowed on the road. A driver decided to give a cyclist extra room while passing them. At that moment, the cyclist decided to turn right. Luckily, an accident was avoided and they both went on with their day. Who do you think was at fault here? Let us know in a comment. Gabe exited I-40 using a nice long straight exit ramp. He'd just come to a stop when wham! The driver behind him never even attempted to slow down and crashed right into Gabe's Model Y. Gabe called the police and filed an insurance claim, and his repair bill came to over $10,000 US. It's currently in the repair shop where it's estimated to take 2 to 4 months to repair. Eric was driving his Model 3 in Vineland, New Jersey. As he approached an intersection, the Acura next to him overtook him. Just as they arrived at the intersection, an SUV ran a red light and the Acura that had just overtaken Eric T-boned it. Eric stopped and made sure everyone was okay, and he provided copies of this video to the Acura driver and the police. Joe was driving in Markham, Ontario. On this particular road, the right lane merges up ahead, and people usually use the zipper method to merge into the left lane. This time though, a Toyota driver in front of Joe didn't like that idea. He refused to let a Mercedes in by closing the gap in front of him. But the Mercedes driver refused to back down either. The gauntlet had been thrown and the duel was on. Cue up the dramatic music because I've got a feeling this is not gonna end well. When Joe noticed what was happening, he pulled back to give them some space. They got closer and closer until they eventually clipped one another before pulling over. Joe doesn't know if there was any damage, but we can see the Mercedes side mirror was flipped back. The Mercedes driver jumped out, and we can only imagine what he said to the Toyota driver. Knowing tempers were high, Joe didn't stick around, but he did send the video to the local police department. He hasn't heard back from them. Nick was waiting at a stop sign when another driver flashed his headlights at him multiple times to signal that he should enter the intersection. Nick was hesitant at first, but since rush hour traffic was building up behind the other driver, he decided to go for it. At that moment, a BMW changed lanes and Nick hit it, ripping off his rear bumper. Nick took full responsibility and the other driver is filing an insurance claim. Let this be a lesson to you. Don't let someone wave you through when it's their turn, and don't wave people through when it's your turn. Irene was driving her Model Y in Newcastle, Washington in rush hour traffic when the cars ahead of her suddenly stopped. Irene had been watching the road and was able to stop in time, but the guy driving the Honda behind her wasn't paying attention. Honda bump. Even though Irene's bike rack took the brunt of the impact, the repair bill still came to $9,000 US. The Honda driver was found 100% at fault and his insurance policy paid for all the repairs. Jose was heading home from work late one night in Waco, Texas. He noticed that the driver of the SUV in front of him was swerving all over the place and wasn't staying in their own lane. Jose changed lanes in an attempt to pass them, but then they started to pull into his lane. Then they went off the road and into the median, crashing into a wire fence before getting back on the road like nothing had happened. Jose deduced the driver must be drunk, so he contacted the police and reported the situation. He followed the car for a while, but when the driver took an exit, the police told him he should abandon his pursuit and leave it to the police. The police said they might contact him for his video footage, but they never called him back. Jose doesn't know what happened in the end. He just hopes they're kept off the road for a long time. Jeremy was driving his Model Y in Mountain View, California when he spotted a Tesla semi out in the wild. There was a black Model X following the Tesla, and rumor has it that it was Elon Musk. Just kidding, we all know he drives a Prius. That's what he said on SNL anyway. Dr. T was driving north on I-35 through Temple, Texas, when he witnessed a multi-car pileup. Right before the wreck, Dr. T had been explaining to his daughter the importance of maintaining a safe driving distance. Steve was driving in Littleton, Colorado, when a car came at him the wrong way on a one-way street. The driver made a quick U-turn, nearly hitting the car next to Steve, before speeding away and cutting off the same car. Calvin was driving his Model X in Southern California when he pulled up alongside another Tesla at a traffic light. Now, the description that follows is Calvin's theory, so we'll just tell you what he told us and you can decide what to believe. In the other Tesla, a Model Y Performance, a girl was in the passenger seat and it looks like her boyfriend was driving. Calvin says it seemed like his Model X got her attention. She seemed unable to stop glancing over at it. Calvin thinks maybe her boyfriend should have opted for a Model X instead. Fink had just made a left turn when he was struck on the passenger side by a lady making a wide right turn. They exchanged insurance information. When Fink contacted her provider to make a claim, they told him she'd already made a claim, stating Fink had drifted into her lane. Fink then laughed just like this. Okay, not really. What he did do was tell the insurance company he had video evidence showing what had happened. After they watched it, they accepted full liability. Unfortunately, the other driver was severely underinsured with only $5,000 in property damage coverage. That didn't cover the cost of Fink's repairs, so he had to make a claim with his own insurance provider as well. Reed was approaching an intersection when a BMW driver accidentally missed their turn. They proceeded to make a very confusing maneuver to get into the turn lane. Reed said the whole thing was rather embarrassing for everyone and nobody really knew what they should do. Thankfully, nobody was honking excessively or got sideswiped, but Reed says it sure was a bewildering driving experience. Reed sent us another video, and believe it or not, this one's even more confusing. He approached an intersection that he described as inconvenient, because when a train arrives during the wrong part of the light cycle, it triggers a red light that lasts 10 minutes. When the train goes by, everybody rushes to get through so they won't get stuck behind another one. And that's what happened here. The gates went up and the lights turned green, but only for a second, and then the light turned red and the gates started lowering. Gotta be quick to get through that light. Only one driver made it through, and the next one had to wait for another entire light cycle. Pete was driving from Sedona, Arizona to Santa Monica, California when a car in the HOV lane lost a tire. This locked up their wheel, sending up a shower of sparks. Pete asked for a shout out to Vorok, a frequent submitter to the Wham Bam Gamercam channel. Thanks, man. While Tuhaiku was returning home from a football game with his wife and her parents, they noticed another driver going slower than surrounding traffic and weaving erratically across the road. They followed from a safe distance and kept an eye on the other driver to see if they continued swerving. His wife decided to call 911 and report the dangerous driver after they nearly sideswiped another vehicle. She was transferred through 3 different law enforcement agencies before being put in contact with the Indiana State Police, and they said they had a unit close by. Tuhaiku continued to follow the reckless driver from a safe distance and turned on his hazard lights to warn other motorists of the danger. It didn't take long for an Indiana State Trooper to find them. He pulled the other driver over shortly after they drifted into the trooper's lane. The dispatcher instructed them just to keep driving after the cop had pulled the other driver over, so that's what they did. Tuhaiku said, "Talk about a convenient cop." Well, that didn't sound very convenient. Sounds like you went to a lot of trouble to get him there. You and your family are the heroes of this story. Well done. When Tom got back to his car, he found a large dent on the passenger side. He immediately checked his Sentry Mode footage to see if it had captured anything, and he was not disappointed. The footage shows a woman getting her 2 dogs out of her car. When they got out, her door swung open and the pointy part of it slammed into the side of Tom's Tesla. The video even shows her feeling the dent several times, but she still took off without leaving a note, leaving Tom to cover the repair bill himself. Tom filed a claim with the California Highway Patrol, but they said they couldn't do anything since her license plate wasn't visible. At least the dogs were cute. I'm pretty sure Earl in Alaska would approve of these adorable frunk puppies. Speaking of the Earl versus Jeremy drama over on Twitter, this next clip is from Florida. It's from Michael, who was stopped at a red light when a Jeep truck next to him lost a bunch of metal out of the bed while driving. Carmen had parked his brand new car outside of his house in Las Vegas, Nevada. The car was literally only 1 day old, meaning Carmen had picked up his car at 5 p.m. before driving it straight home. He would have parked it in the garage, but his girlfriend's mother's car was in there and he didn't want to make her move for just one night. The next morning at 7 a.m., he got a notification that his car alarm was going off. He couldn't believe what he discovered. He'd been backed into just 14 hours after picking up his car. Predictably, the driver took off without leaving any information. Carmen filed an insurance claim and made a police report. It took a month for the other driver's insurance provider to accept responsibility because the other driver kept denying it had even happened. He even tried to claim his car had been stolen on that particular day. When the insurance company asked for a police report showing his vehicle had been stolen, he claimed that he'd lost the police report. He's as bad at lying as he is at backing up a car. The repair total came to $2,700 US. Davian was leaving an Ice Cube concert in San Jose with a few friends when a truck cut in front of him, drove up onto the grass and pulled a burnout, spraying dirt all over his Tesla. Even though the dirt came off, Davian was not happy. He wishes he could report the guy's reckless behavior to his own insurance provider. Davian sent us one more video. This time he was driving home from work when a man standing in an intersection saw his car, leaned over, and spit on it as Davian passed him. Davian informed the police about the man spitting on cars and asked for a follow-up, but he never got one. For this next clip, we don't have any footage, but we've got something else, and it's so spectacular that we just had to show you. Shane was driving along at 20 miles per hour when he felt a bump. Within a minute, his car alerted him that a tire had gone flat. He got out to investigate and found an entire flashlight wedged into the tire's sidewall. Have you ever seen something like this before? Man, that was a long episode. I sure hope you're satisfied.